Okay, how do you know what the intent of the whistleblower policy is?
By a plain read of the language, I guess.
Okay, and that's, who does that?
In my implementation of it, it would be me. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's just, I just after the form.
Okay, and do you seek guidance from anybody else when you are interpreting the policy?
I haven't.
Okay, so it's fair to say that you are the only one who interprets this policy, is that correct?
The form misstates the prior testimony.
In my implementation of it, yeah.
Okay. So it's fair to say then that as far your office, you are the one who's implementing the policy and executing the policy at your office. Is that correct?
As one of the individuals named with the responsibility of taking receipt of whistleblower concerns, yes.
Okay. And are there other people who are named as able to take whistleblower concerns?
Yes.
Okay. And who are those other officers?
The board president, the superintendent, and then also the board clerk.
Okay. And to your knowledge, why was your office created?
Check foundation.
Really to enhance fiscal oversight of the organization and bring fiscal transparency.
Okay. And what does that mean to you?
It's heavily weighted in making sure that the financial managers of the district have the fiscal transparency that the board felt was requisite when they drafted and created the office.
Okay. And so what do you do to ensure that fiscal transparency?
There's a number of things we do in terms of review of the financial documents, of budgets, of AF&P materials through which contracts, budget adjustments appear, independent reporting to the board then of any particular items that we see that might be, we think, should be brought to the board's attention. And then additionally, the office is responsible for implementing the supplier diversity, historically underutilized businesses, communities in need, which is a local employer preference program, and then the student employment portions in our contract client service area.
Okay. Where does whistleblower investigations fit into that?
It would fit into my purview as the senior director.
Okay. As senior director, how much of your job is spent investigating whistleblower complaints?
That's another one tends to do peaks and valleys, but it has at times been, and the question was, I think, the percentage of time.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously it would be sort of based on a snapshot, but there have been times when I've gone weeks straight on only whistleblower stuff.
Okay. Was that the case with Dr. Chason?
Yes, it was.
Okay, for about how long?
3 or 4 weeks, I want to say.
What time period was that?
This has been the first several weeks of January.
Okay. So it's fair to say that you were...
year?
Oh, sorry.
2020. Is that right?
The 2021.
2021.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So it's fair to say that in January of 2021, you were working full-time on Dr. Keither's whistleblower investigation.
If not full-time, nearly full-time. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Do you, as your experience in your position, do you know if the MPS whistleblower policy is legally binding?
Check the form foundation.
Sorry, did you say something?
Yeah.
Well, he was I was about to object, but same objection.
Great.
I guess I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, and why not?
I think that it obligates me to implement the policy, and certainly I'm bound in that way, but I guess in terms of legally binding, I'm not sure what that...
Okay. So do you feel that it's part of your job duties to investigate whistleblower?
Yes.
Okay. And how do you know that?
By the read of the language of that policy.
Okay. So your interpretation of the policy.
Correct.
Okay.
Oh.
Has anybody ever told you not to investigate whistleblowers?
No.
Has anybody told you to investigate whistleblowers?
No one's no one's ever directed me to investigate whistleblowers.
Okay. Have you ever brought a whistleblower complaint to the MPS board?
Yes, I have.
Okay. How many whistleblower complaints have you brought to the MPS board during your time as head of the Office of OAE?
I think. Hold on a second here. Five.
Okay. And is that including Dr. Keither and Rochelle Chandran?
Are you referring to the whistleblower B?
Yes.
Then yes, that would be inclusive.
I appreciate that distinction. Based on your presentation of whistleblower complaints to the board, what action, if any, did the board take?
We have to form vague as to what whistleblower complaint.
The outcomes have generally been, well, I guess it's case by case. So, depending on the nature of the concern, there have been, I guess, dismissal of staff as a result.
Okay. So let's go through the five here. Who was the first one that you brought to the board?
Again, going to object to the extent that it's asking for him to divulge information which is confidential of third parties.
The first one I brought was regarding Dan Chason.
Can you spell that last name, please?
I'm hoping I'm getting it right. Chanen.
Thank you. And what was his concern?
It had to do with general workplace toxicity and what may have been a fraternization issue with an employee.
Okay. And to be fair, he had a relationship that was beyond the bounds of ordinary friendship with a subordinate. Is that right?
That was the allegation.
Okay. And that was against Mr. Chanin?
That is correct.
Okay. So who brought the concern to you for that complaint?
Again, same objection about divulging confidential information of third parties who are not here.
I believe that was brought to my attention by Leah Scouter.
Okay. And at that time, was Mr. Chanin the head of HR?
Yes, I believe that was his title.
Okay. And what happened as a result of you bringing this complaint to the board?
I believe the superintendent at the time, Dr. Darian Driver, then conducted, I guess, her own investigation.
Mm-hmm.
And then subsequent to that, I believe Mr. Chain was separated from the district.
And obviously, Mr. Chanin identifies as male, to your knowledge?
To my knowledge.
Okay. And do you know what race Mr. Chanin is?
I believe he's Caucasian.
Okay. If we can go to the second complaint that you brought to the board, please.
That was involving...
Well, then if you're going to, well, first of all, I'll object to the question because there's no question. Just said, can we go to the next complaint? But to the extent he's asking for information concerning this complaint, I again would object to the extent that it's calling for information which is confidential to third parties who have not agreed to our knowledge to have their confidential information disclosed here today.
Great. So, do you understand the question?
I'm
Well, I'll just be happy to.
I'm sorry.
Who? What was the nature of the second complaint that you brought to the board?
That one was involving Himanshu Parikh.
And could you spell that, please?
I'm going to apologize if I get it wrong. Himanshu, Himanshu, and Parikh, I believe, was Parikh. I apologize if I got that wrong.
Of course. And what position did that person hold at MPS at that time, if any?
I believe he was the chief of HR at the time.
The same as Mr. Chason?
I believe so.
Okay. And what was the nature of the allegation against Mr. Parikh?
It was generally a toxic workplace environment.
Okay. Okay. And what action, if any, did the board take in response to this complaint?
The board asked that the city attorney do a review of my findings that I brought to the board, and then subsequent to that, Mr. Parikh was separated from the district.
Based on the findings of the city attorney's office?
Based on my findings that they had asked the city attorney to sort of review.
Okay. Did the city... What was the result of the city attorney's review? If any?
That they substantiated a toxic workplace environment.
Okay. And what does toxic workplace environment mean to you?
An unhealthy work environment, people fear of just additional scrutiny in their work.
No. And in this case, was there an inappropriate sexual relationship?
No.
No. Okay. Can a toxic work environment contain discrimination, to your knowledge?
You took the form foundation.
State the question again. I'm sorry.
Can a toxic work environment contain discrimination to your knowledge?
I could.
Okay. And the race of Mr. Parikh, if you know?
I'm not sure the right classification. Indian Asian descent? I'm sorry, I don't know what the...
Sure. And I'm sure we can agree that as long as you tell the truth, there can't be a wrong answer here.
Okay.
So are we okay to move forward on that basis?
Yeah.
Great. There is a third complaint, correct? That you brought to the board?
Yes.
Okay, and who was that complaint against?
Same objection to the extent that it's, well, not to the extent, objection that he's asking this witness to divulge confidential information of third parties who are not here today and have not waived their right to privacy on those issues.
The third one would have been a matter regarding Dr. Holliday.
Okay, and who made that complaint?
I think the starting point would have been Dr. Keither.
Okay. Were there more people who made complaints against Dr. Holliday for that issue?
In the capacity that other people had approached me and just raised general concerns.
Okay. And these are general concerns against Dr. Holliday?
Correct, yep.
Okay. Okay. So I'm sure we'll go back to that one. But can we go on to the fourth one? Who was that complaint against?
Same objection to the extent that it's asking the witness to divulge confidential information of third parties who have not waived or otherwise agreed to have their confidential information divulged here today.
The fourth one actually was my discussing with the board the Dr. Keither matter.
Okay. And what's different? I'm sorry, I might have got my numbering confused here. No, the third one was also Dr. Keither about Holliday?
I would argue there was intersectionality there, but I did I discussed them in separate fashion with the board on the same evening.
Okay. So it's that would have been on January 21st or some other day?
January the 21st of 2021.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
And So it's fair to say that you brought issue 3 and 4 to the board, both from Dr. Keither, both on January 21st?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. What about the 5th one?
The fifth
Check the
one,
form of question.
I believe you're referring to the 5th in the number of 5 that I referred to.
Exactly.
That one was a concern that had come from Calvin Furman.
Okay.
And also, I'd interject objection to the extent that it's calling for information that's confidential to third parties who have not waived that confidence.
Okay. And what was the nature of the complaint from Calvin Furman?
Twofold, in that he had concerns about what would have been a toxic environment under Chief Marla Bernard, but then I believe he also raised the concern about possible fraternization between Chief Bernard and Dr. Posley.
And Dr. Who?
Dr. Posley, I'm sorry, yeah.
Okay. And how did you receive the complaint from Calvin Furman?
I believe it was in person.
Okay. Did he write anything with that complaint?
Yes, he did.
Okay. And did he give it to you at that time?
I believe he gave it to me in person.
Okay.
I think.
And to your knowledge, was Calvin Furman employed by NPS at that time when he gave you,
Yes.
when you met? Okay. But then, do you know if he left shortly thereafter? Or should we just say subsequently thereafter?
Subsequently, yes.
Okay. When did you receive this complaint from Calvin Furman? This is mine.
I'm sorry, I don't recall the exact date. It would have been in, I believe, in one of the last 3 months of 2022.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't recall the date.
It's no problem. But we're clear that the day that he gave you the document, the day of the meeting, are likely the same date.
I believe so.
Okay. What did you take any steps to investigate his complaint?
I actually brought it to the attention of the board, and when I said I brought it to the attention of the board, I said that I had gotten a concern that I asked that the board permit me to obtain an outside investigator to investigate.
Okay. How did you communicate that request to the board?
It was in a closed session, and I forget the date. I'm just presuming you were going to ask.
Fair enough. So they, this is in a closed session with the board. Is that alternatively called an executive session?
Yes.
Are those synonymous terms?
I have used them synonymously.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. So, you brought this to their attention in a closed session. How did they respond, if at all?
They authorized me to work with the board clerk to obtain an external investigator basically on the board's behalf at that point.
How did they communicate that desire to you?
I guess by consensus of discussion.
And did that consensus happen at the closed session?
Yes.
Okay. Was there ever a formal decision to back that consensus made in public,
Check the form of the question.
to your knowledge?
I don't recall.
Okay. So the board clerk, who is that person?
Dr. Jacqueline Mann.
Okay. So what steps, if any, did you and Jacqueline Mann take to obtain an outside investigator?
I believe we reached out to I believe first there was an attempt to reach out to, I think this was the firm, I believe it was someone at Bulow Vetter.
Okay.
But then subsequent to that,